Hello Reapers, my name's Seth and we are back again for some more Trove. Today we're going to be talking about, once again, the highlights of the most recent developer live stream, because they're starting to actually talk about some really interesting stuff. Most notably is just the questions that they're actually being asked are really, really interesting, and they're actually taking the extra time to respond to them, because more often than not they'll usually say, oh, we don't want to give away spoilers, we don't want to talk about this or that and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I am going to tell you all right here right now that there is no Rebate winner announcement, so you know, kind of like we already expected, there's no actual winner announced, and they kind of keep going back and forth between like whether they're going to end up actually picking a winner or not. Technically speaking, they did say they would pick a winner before the end of January, so maybe we'll end up seeing it next month. We might even see it later today, honestly, who knows. But before we get started with all of that, I would appreciate if you would like the video, makes the video show up in searches and stuff like that. We do have some interesting stuff, kind of talks, hints about the next tier of gear and everything like that. Not really anything that's exceptionally like, whoa, this is like, they're telling us everything about the next content or anything, but it still is interesting stuff to say the least, because like this one, for example, any plans to get unobtainable trophies from Luxian, the Flux Dragons, so they say it's a really great idea. We'll take a look at the drop tables and evaluate that and see. Now, that is more like it, where the players already seem to understand what Luxian is about. We've already talked about this in my recent videos, talking about the Flux Dragon, how it's completely underwhelming and not really utilized very well. Questions like this that get the developers to actually start thinking, wait a minute, he should be doing what? Like, that's what Luxian was supposed to be doing in the first place, was selling items that are unobtainable. You know, that was supposed to be the whole point of him, rather than just selling retired Chaos Chest items. Can you make Luxian give away more useful things like old Chaos Chest rotation items and missable items, not necessarily decorations like the Festive Sleigh, Personal Pot Parade, Dance Pad, for example. And then the developers say, a lot of the items that were removed are spread out over the loot tables for upcoming months. We'll ensure that the ones you've suggested are included. And so we're kind of getting, you know, it's kind of like items that were in the Chaos Chest have been taken out and have actually been thrown into Luxian's inventory, which unfortunately we saw the last time that the dragon ended up showing up. He just sold trash, man. Like, seriously. Also, not to mention, get rid of the prop items. Like, seriously, I don't care if it's a prop item that doesn't exist anymore, unless it's something really cute and adorable and deserves death, like a little Cubesley ally. I don't want to see any props in the stupid Flux Dragon's inventory. So they also mentioned this one. Will Luxian ever sell costumes? That was another thing that I thought was very interesting. We actually did talk about that in our last Luxian video, where we mentioned costume mystery boxes rather than just outright selling a specific costume, because that would be a great way for the game's like economy to start draining dragon coins, and would actually beg the question of most players: do you want to grind your dragon coins to buy costumes from this dragon that shows up every now and then, or do you want to get the dragons themselves? It would actually blur the lines of what you actually want to spend the currency on, and I think that would be fantastic. So the developers actually say that's undecided right now, but it sounds like if they no longer exist in the game, then Luxian might be a good candidate to get them. However, if it were intended to never be available again, that's a different story. Now, we can never see costumes never be available again, developers, unless you end up making it a promotional item, in which case it doesn't give mastery, because otherwise there's already too many items that are almost, if not completely unattainable, that do give mastery. They've kind of ironed it out over the years, but really, it's almost impossible for new players to get to the amount of mastery that some of us end gamers are already at. Will Luxian be able to sell himself as a mount? Maybe, the developers say, but I can hashtag confirm that my buddy Stratos and I did end up going into the game's code. That is to say, he ended up going into the game's code, extracting a bunch of the files and stuff, and we already saw right then and there, Luxian is a dragon. He's going to end up being a mount eventually. We don't know when. When will you announce the Rebate winners? The developers say, until the people who were selected to win notify the team that they accept the prize and clarify, it can't be announced. Okay, so at least they ended up talking about it more specifically, saying that they have picked out the winners, but they are waiting for a response from them, because most likely it ended up picking a bunch of people that have quit the game, because I'm guessing that it's not necessarily looking at the most recent players outside outside of the fact that we are still very, very suspect that it's going to be very rigged depending on the people that end up winning. If certain people end up winning Rebate, I'm just going to say outright, you know, we'll know whether or not it was just completely rigged who ended up actually winning it. Because otherwise, who ended up winning Rebate? We should see a bunch of random names, not a bunch of people that are top mastery or anything like that, right? So will dragon fragments ever be easier to farm? No immediate plans to adjust the drop rates. I mean, I can confirm right here, right now. I know your cries, everybody, about the Starlight Dragon fragments and how broken they are, because I've gone through the Shadow Tower, I don't know, like hundreds of times since they ended up adding, I was going to say buffing, but the Starlight Dragon fragments, and I haven't gotten a single one. I've gone through Shadow Towers hundreds of times, going for the Hydra and Dread badges and stuff like that, and I haven't seen a single fragment. The developers, unfortunately, don't test this stuff out themselves. They just kind of receive player feedback, and unless they get like a million people saying this is stupid, they're not going to adjust it because they don't think that's a problem, despite the fact that the numbers say otherwise. It is not balanced with the Starlight Dragon or the Spinner Fragment eggs and stuff like that, dude. Like, seriously. So when will the Dragon Coin rebate be? We'll post the info on when to expect it once it's locked down. So pretty much if you ended up spending dragon coins, I forget if it was within this entire month or last month or something like that, you were supposed to be getting a bunch of dragon coins back. They're taking their sweet time and actually doing that. Is it possible to have both versions of Forbidden Spire terraformers? Not exactly sure what they even mean by that one. I guess they just mean like the different types of generation that we end up seeing in the biome itself. It is possible. We'll look and see how many hours it'd take and see if we can squeeze it into an upcoming update, as we know a lot of people have been asking about. So that's pretty interesting and cool. Will we ever see a change to the bound Brilliance economy? This one's actually a very interesting question, because the developers actually respond with, the next update will bring some changes to that specifically happen on Gem Day. So we might actually see on Gembox Day, maybe we'll see Bound Brilliance as a rare drop from enemies and stuff like that while we're farming on this day, which potentially would mean that Wednesday would be the laggiest game, the laggiest day on Trove, right? Because everybody would end up logging in just to end up getting themselves the Bound Brilliance, okay? So then, can we get a mini-map in the right corner? This is very interesting because there was actually a modder who ended up making a mini-map that would show up in one of the corners of Once Upon a Time. It didn't end up updating very well over time, but it was really cool that somebody did end up figuring out a way to do it. So the developers say they have talked about it, but it's not going to be as beneficial as you think. We're looking at improvements, but this probably won't happen. Honestly speaking, I don't really see a reason for a mini-map, but I would argue that it is way better than having a compass. I would actually say that the compass is one of the most useless objects that has been added to Trove thus far. Like, seriously, there was no reason for it, especially... How's about this? How's about get rid of the mini-map? Because yes, the mini-map would not be very useful because the map itself in this game is not very detailed, but I would like to see waypoints. I would like to be able to see, you know, stuff that I would be able to mark or be able to go into an options menu and change it so that I could actually see a dungeon icon on my HUD. I think that would be fantastic, because then you would never lose track of where you are and where you're going, right? You would be able to just farm very effectively, and also it would require a lot less brain input. Not that this game is very complicated, but I'm just saying, like, if you're grinding dungeons into the wee hours of the night, you get tired and it starts becoming very monotonous and very difficult to determine, okay, where's the next dungeon? I gotta look around on my map every 2 seconds. Where's it going to be? Instead of just having a waypoint show up on my screen so that I could just see where exactly is it that I'm going. That's just my 2 cents towards it. The developers didn't say anything about it. So are we going to be able to fly with the Dino Tamer's ultimate ability? No, but it's being worked on and the animation sounds awesome, says the developers, which, I mean, we already saw the animation for the Dino Tamer's flying like a year ago or something like that. So what are they talking about? It's being worked on. Just add it to the game already, like, seriously. More ways to get class gem fragments, like class gem key fragments. No plans right now. Obviously, that's not going to be their top priority because the developers prioritize new content rather than balancing out old content, which, honestly speaking, I understand where they're going for this. New stuff is always flashy. It generates more income for the company and stuff like that. But personally speaking, Trove in itself is extremely unbalanced for that very reason. because they don't go back and readjust old content to match up with new content, and thus we have this garbled mess of a video game that in a lot of ways is really, really cool and we all very much enjoy it, but at the same time is really, really broken. Like, we can't argue against the fact that Trove is a complete mess as far as content is concerned. But anyways, if a new tier of gear is added, will our current stellar gems be worthless, and will we have to start over? This is the question everybody's been asking, right? So the developers kind of dodged the question about the gems, unfortunately. However, I still will read off their comment back, is when we add a new tier of rarity or something to that effect, the previous tiers will feed into that system. They're talking about gear, because previous tiers of gear always affect going into the next level. So it means, like, we'll be able to forge up our stellar face, stellar weapons and stuff like that into that next tier of gear. Now that remains to be seen with the rings, because those are not necessarily an upgradable item. But unfortunately, it seems like they completely dodged the question of whether or not we're going to see new tiers of gems, which could mean that they're not going to do it. But otherwise, I think if they weren't going to do gems, they would have just outright said, no, we're not going to end up doing gems. The fact that they're kind of staying like kind of neutral towards it tells me that they know that people won't like it, but they're probably going to end up doing it anyway. If not in the update when they end up adding the new gear, eventually down the line, I would predict that they are going to end up adding the new tiers of gems and stuff like that, despite the fact that, honestly speaking, I think that would bring Trove's player base down like a whole lot. Like, so many people, including endgame people, would actually quit from an update like that. So fingers crossed that they don't end up actually adding new tiers of gems. But anyway, they go on to say with the same question, at the same time, we would like to tune some of the progression towards the different, like how shadow items go up to tier 1 to 5. It seems like they might just get rid of that altogether and just have shadow gear, and then it goes up to radiant, which I think would actually be a lot better if they did something like that. It would be a little bit weird as far as the forging is concerned, but I think that that would be the way to go, just because of the fact that most of the shadow gear is absolutely useless outside of the fact that, you know, you need it to be tier 5 in order to actually forge it up to radiant, right? So any updates on Trove creations? So the developers say the situation is that the updates have introduced large systems to the game, which has taken away a lot of time to accept and add Trove creation stuff. So I guess they're talking about like mods and items that are being added to the game. Trove benefits greatly when we add the buy systems, but we will probably try alternating between large patches and try to find more time to get new items into the game. Now, the thing is that I understand that the process is very, very slow, in which case we've talked about this before. I'll talk about again very briefly, where I still think that Trove could benefit from taking the extra time to, rather than even bothering slowly adding content into the game, they should just stop outright and focus on a new system where we would bring up, let's say, a menu very similar to this, and we would be able to just see modded items right here, right now, very similar to the game Spore that was on PC years back, right? So what that game ended up doing was it allowed players to customize creatures, and then those creatures would end up showing on the website, and then players could end up voting on them, whether they were actually really cool and stuff. And some of the ones that were the most popular, you could actually choose in your settings that they would end up showing up in the game. Now, for Trove, I think that they could benefit from having a system where we would be able to vote on mods and mounts and stuff like that in this menu in game, so that the players would directly influence the items that would end up being added. It would also mean favoritism towards modders would end up being a thing of the past, and it would also mean that more items could be added to the game, because the feedback would be immediate, right? So we could have, say, an item for the Draco gets 500 votes. Then the developers actually take a peek at it and see, okay, this thing's got 500 votes. Is it something that needs to actually be added to the game? Maybe it's something that's against conduct, in which players can report it. And if enough reports get on an item, of course, it would just be removed from the game. But then they could just kind of add it to the game by just clicking a button, and then bang, it's already in the game as an item that maybe you could even just buy out of the cash shop or something like that, you know? And maybe some of the credits go towards the content creator who actually made it. That would actually bring Trove's community up to insane degrees, and also generate a lot more income for the developers, because that's the thing too, is that I find very interesting about this game is the fact that they still have cash only packs, which doesn't make sense to me. Those should be swapped over to credits. credits for the simple fact that I don't know if they're thinking raw currency is something that's more important, because credits are an item that has to be earned. You have to buy it in order to actually get it into the game in the first place. Thus meaning that if players are actually buying this pack with credits, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're losing out on income for a player that would buy it outright with money. You know what I'm saying? You don't care. So anyways, there's going to be this next question right here, which is a pretty decent one, and then we got another one that's a really, really good one. So we've got, will Titan treasures be buffed or new uses for them added to the end game? So this is kind of the question that I mentioned where they, the developers say, as we add new content, we are going to put less of an emphasis on older stuff. With new systems come new paths of progression. Shadow Towers are not going to be the end game of Trove in the foreseeable future. Even though it kind of is right now, and even then, you know, it's like, what's going to be the end game other than grinding a different resource in a different area? But I just wanted to put emphasis on that just because of the fact that they blatantly say they don't really care about old content. Now, don't get me wrong, the old content should not be a priority, but fixing it and making it refined before they move on, that in my mind defies like a really good game company, right? So then they've got just a quick one right here. Can we get the option of locked cornerstones so they can't accidentally be damaged? We know and many want and we think it'd be great, but there's no info on that in the future or anytime soon. So unfortunately, no locked cornerstones, which honestly speaking, you should be able to do that. You should just be able to type a command very similar to locking a biome in a club world, but it should just lock your cornerstone, honestly speaking. But I mean, we all know that the cornerstones themselves get damaged by a whole bunch of things regardless, so I would say just get your bombs off of your hotbar when you go into your cornerstone. But then on top of that, you know, we've seen countless times, I've had it happen to me too, where the top of your cornerstone just gets chopped off for no reason because the game's like so broken, and then you try to request to get it to repair, and then they're like, we gotta roll your entire account back. And it's like, no, I don't want to lose my items, just fix my stupid roof. But anyways, we got this question right here. So do you have any plans to address equipment and gem progression? As is, the current progression curves stifles progression severely past around Uber 3 and heavily, oh my gosh, what a, like, yak. So anyways, what we're talking about here is the fact that, you know, we already mentioned this last time, where the, you know, from Uber 3, as this person's saying, up to U6, like pretty much players end up quitting before they end up reaching U6. That's the vast majority of Trove. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's a priority for the developers to end up refining the early game content. As much as I'm excited about new end game content, new gear and stuff like that, look at the tutorial, for example. That's in the game, and it's like really, really cool and high production, and then suddenly you're in the game world and it's like no more instructions, that's it, the game's done, like, and that's it. It just kind of repeats that content over and over and over again until you end up getting to the later tiers of the game, in which case, what, you know, you still got the same gems that you gotta deal with where you just try to rush your PR. So anyways, here's what the developer said. We talk a lot about this internally, and we feel like some of the upcoming gameplay and not store content will continue to mitigate these hard points of progress. The barrier of U6 to U7 used to be insane, but that's been mitigated in recent times by larger influx of support material so as to accomplish a higher power rank. Yikes, dude. So pretty much what they're saying in English is that they've added a whole bunch of new, like, now that we've got the rings and stuff like that, it's much easier to get more power rank to actually go to the next tiers of worlds and stuff like that. But that's the whole thing, is now we're kind of like, that's their solution. More power rank? Is that why they're adding new gear to the game? So that the progression is going to be that much easier? Rather than finding a fix and making the game more interesting, they're just going to end up adding higher tiered gear that new players still aren't going to be able to access in the first place? Like, it doesn't really make sense to me, dude. So we got a couple extra questions right here before we end up calling it. Will Luxian sell items that you can buy only one time? For example, being lunar souls or credit pouches. Really neat idea, the developers say, but for now we just wanted him to make accessible inaccessible things, okay? He's supposed to be selling items that you can't get anymore. But they're open to this kind of thing in the future. That would be really cool. I think that would be, you know, credit pouches, technically speaking, that would be a big drain for the Dragon Coin economy. But honestly speaking, I don't know about credit pouches. Maybe lunar souls and some of the time-gated garbage. I think that could be really, really good. Will Luxian wares ever repeat in case you miss something he offers? Yes. I wish that the question asked, win, because I don't want to wait until last year or next year to be able to buy an item that he just sold, you know, 2 seconds ago, like last month, right? So what's the possibility for current loot exclusive items, such as a Prism of Light, to become available through crafting or materials or merchants and stuff like that? Very, very good point, because an item like that is absolutely stupid. Same with Primordial Dragons. You know, we already ended up seeing a solution to that with daily login, you know, Dragonite, because technically speaking, I've never unboxed my 3rd Diamond Dragon Egg. So if we didn't have craftable Dragonite, you know, Diamond Dragons, I would never have had all of my Primordial Dragons. Fun fact. Same with the Prisms of Light. I just luckily got on my last unboxing video of Valiant Power Gems the last Prism of Light I needed, because otherwise I didn't have them all. So the developers say some stuff will always remain rare and may always have a randomness factor / component to obtain. In those situations, we ask the designers to evaluate whether an alternative or an appropriate additional method can be done. Normally, we try to provide a gameplay that means you acquire things. Okay? Gameplay means to acquire things, I guess is what they're saying. Okay, yes and no. You know, I personally, I think that the items and drop rates and stuff in Trove are completely random. They're too random, honestly speaking, because we've already seen this before. This is another big reason that the developers seem to be overlooking why so many people quit this game, is because you might put 100 hours into this game, and then your friend who just joins and within the first, like, hour ends up unboxing a Diamond Dragon Egg, whereas you'll never end up getting one. You know, the fact that I had to craft all of my Diamond Dragon Eggs and only unboxed a couple of them after the fact is stupid. Like, that's really bad. I'm like one of the most dedicated players to Trove, you know, seeing with me being on top mastery board and having, you know, really high power rank and stuff like that. And I should be rewarded for that. You know, I shouldn't be punished by having the same randomness that a starting player has. And I'm not salty about it by any means. Don't get me wrong. I love seeing people unbox Diamond Dragon Eggs and stuff like that. But when I see somebody unbox it out of their first box, I understand very, like, wholeheartedly how other people would end up being very discouraged towards grinding up themselves and just playing themselves, you know? Like, we kind of got the same system with the gems as well, where you can end up either leveling them up right away, no problem, or you just take 5 years for them to level up. Like, it's a problem. It really needs to be addressed. Do you have any plans to reward players based on time played? Not for total time played currently, but we do have incentivize daily participation. So just daily logins and stuff like that. Seems like the thing that I just ended up talking about 2 seconds ago. They have absolutely no idea that that is a big detrimental thing that is keeping people from playing this game as much as they would. Will there ever be another way to obtain the dormant Lorekeeper Dragon Egg? That's a good point, because otherwise this dragon, which is a dragon for crying out loud, was actually a dragon egg right here, which is the tokens from whatever month this was. It certainly wasn't the January or anything, right? So unfortunately, it seems you're gonna have to wait until next year in order to get these tokens to actually buy the dragon egg, outside of the fact that they do mention we'll have a chat with Luxian. So I guess the Flux Dragon's going to end up selling this dragon egg, which, I mean, that's more like it. Like, he should start selling token items and stuff like that. But then it begs the question where we still have the same problem, in that the shop itself, like the Flux Dragon, is only going to end up selling a handful of items at a time, when there is so many items that he could potentially be selling. There's probably over 50 items that he could be selling right now that they're just dragging out over the entire year and filling up his inventory with prop items so that it seems like he's selling something worthwhile, when the simple fact is that I'm pretty sure a lot more players would prefer to just have his entire inventory open right then and there, and them adding stuff periodically every month to his inventory. I think that would be a lot better, because not only that, it would also promote people to start spending more of their dragon coins, which ultimately means people would either be on the game more, grinding dragon caches and stuff like that, or just outright buying more dragon caches and dragon coins, which you want to have more player input time. You know, that's kind of the whole thing. That's what I don't understand about the development cycle of Trove, is it seems like they just keep on adding like these quick little things where people just log in, grab an item, log out, and that's it. The average player of Trove plays for like 30 minutes a day, and that's it. They just log in, grab all their daily stuff, and they log out. You know, that's not, like, I want to see more people playing this game, but I guess more people can't be playing this game because otherwise we got to deal with the servers. But anyways, this is all just my own personal feedback, folks. You don't got to take it to heart or anything. It's just my own personal opinion of somebody that's been playing this game for over 3 years. Seriously, there's something wrong with me. But either way, I am still very passionate about this game. I still love this game. That's exactly why I wish that we would actually see some of these systems actually being improved upon rather than the direction the developers keep going, which is placating more towards endgame players, which the endgame players are the minority. There is not that many of us compared to the people that are starting out. And so many times I've seen so many people, especially because I'm such a big-time Trove channel, I always get all of the feedback from everybody, which, you know, I feel is very, very important that I share that feedback right back with the people that are watching these videos and stuff like that, so we can kind of determine whether or not this is something that should actually be worked on or not. And the fact of the matter is that I get so many people that are constantly telling me how it's like, dude, this game is getting boring after a couple months. And it's like, I know. I was there just with everybody else where I started getting bored of the game. Now I've just been playing the game so much that I wouldn't know what I would do with my time if I didn't have it to play. But anyways, I don't want to get into any of that. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Very much appreciated. Don't forget to like, share, favorite, and subscribe for more daily content that's also going to give loyalty points to you that you can check out in my merch store. Links are in the description for that. And for the fans that want to go the extra mile, you can donate to me for absolutely free with Gawkbox. Check links in the description about that as well. And then if you have any feedback on this video, or if you just want to leave a like or anything like that just to help the video out and stuff like that, I would personally appreciate it as well. Otherwise, have yourselves a fantastic day. Sayonara and stay epic.